What's up, guys? This is your girl Madeline Berry here with Glory Addict Chronicles. Here we are at week 3 of the RedWord Immersion for this year, the first one for 2015. I'm sure we will do another one before it's all over with. But here we are. We're reading through Matthew, 28 chapters in 28 days, and we're also doing a proverb a day. So, hope you're keeping up. Every day is the day of the proverb and the Matthew that you should read up until probably the 26th, when you'll have to read 2 proverbs a day instead of 1 to finish the whole chapter. Okay, so in last week's overview of the first 7 chapters of Matthew, we pretty much discussed the genealogy through Jesus just sitting down and teaching people for, like 2.5 chapters, and from 5 to 7, I'll call it. And so this week we're just going to continue from 8 to 14, and we're gonna just go through this and get it done as quickly as possible. I have prayed. I feel like God has given me some really cool things that we can look at now. Just remember, when we did the RedWord Immersion in John, we took 1 chapter a week. So for me to go through 7 chapters in one sitting is pretty phenomenal by itself. But just know that I'll surface over a whole lot of big juicy nuggets, hoping that you'll be able to go through it in your personal time. Just go and get the juicy stuff out. I'm gonna try as best as I can just to pull out some of the really strong points that God just kind of highlighted to me as I was reading through the chapters, 8 through 14 each day. And so let's go ahead and get started. So after Jesus, at the end of chapter 7, we find Jesus talking about the foundations, how our lives are built on a foundation, whether it's rock or whether it's sand. We actually have the choice of picking what foundation our lives will be built on. And so from then on, from chapter 8 forward, he then begins to demonstrate the things that he's taught. So in 7 and the 5, 6, and 7, he's just kind of talking through different things, just instructing us on how we should live, things that we should do, what our faith should look like, how we should go through different things, how we should pray, how we should fast, and just different things that we need to be actively working on consistently. And so he in Mark 16, the last chapter of Mark, where he gives a Great Commission for that chapter, or Mark's version of the Great Commission, he tells us that signs will follow the word. And so here he is sitting and teaching them. It doesn't really say that it was all in one sitting that those chapters were written in, but it is one big long session of teaching on different topics. And so what we can get from that was that he pretty much talked through, what your life should look like. You want to live a blessed life? Look at the Beatitudes. You want to know how to give? Look at Matthew 6. If you want to know how to have faith for God to take care of you, look at chapter 6 also. I mean, it's like different things that he was just teaching us, how to fast, what we should look like, how we shouldn't look, things that we should do, and just instructional things. So it would be, according to the word, that after he sits and discusses all these things, that signs should follow what he said. So in 7, we see him coming down off the mountain, teaching these people, and so he says, I think that it's poignant to know that, like, the first thing that we hear him say to somebody who asks him to heal them is what he said. So in verse, I don't even know what verse it was. The leper comes to him right when he's coming down the mountain, and it's in the first couple of verses. Jesus says, actually in um, verse 1, actually, he's talking to him, verse 1 and 2, and the guy comes up to him and says, Lord, if you're willing, you can make me clean. And so I think that is so significant that we are looking at God's heart through Jesus's words. And so what he says to him is, I am willing, be made clean. And now, let me just remind you that I'm reading and talking to you from the Holman Christian Standard Bible, so that you can just go and connect these words with what I'm saying. So he says, I'm willing, be made clean. Now, this speaks to so many if the Lord wills, comments and prayers. Lord, your will be done. Yes, your will is done. So what is his will? He's telling us what his will. His will is for every person to be healed and whole. And so if you come in contact with somebody who has some sickness, some disease, some type of malady, some type of handicap, handicapable, however you want to say it, something that can be healed, the Father's desire is that they be healed. Now, whether or not the timing is right for that healing to occur or not, why not give it a shot? If you hear God say, hey, go talk to that person, you might not know what you're going to talk to them about. They may have a bad back pain. You might just be able to pray away a headache, or, do something that will just cause them instantaneously to be whole and healed from something that they may have been suffering from for a long period of time. So his will is for us to be healed, and he just demonstrates that through all these chapters that we read last week. And so then later on in the chapter, he goes that, well, right, the next part of it is where he's on his way he enters into Capernaum, and here comes the centurion soldier. So he's the ruler over 100 soldiers, centurion. And so he tells him, hey, Lord, my servant is sick, and he's paralyzed. He needs to be healed. Jesus immediately, his words, he didn't ask him to come. He goes, Lord, my servant is lying at home paralyzed. And let me see, in terrible agony, right? And Jesus says immediately, I will come and heal him. That is so God's heart for us. I really feel like you need to understand that whatever your situation is physically, mentally, anything that's going on in your body, any of your systems not working properly, any of the muscles, the tissues, the ligaments, the organs, anything in your body that's excuse me, that's not currently functioning at its 100% God made and ordained function, God wants to heal you. He said, I will come and heal him. Now, I think it's really interesting that God said this, because obviously he's hearing God and then he's speaking. But what I want to point out is that he is on a journey to recognize different levels of faith. As he sees faith operating, he expresses that it's faith that does the work, right? So he says, I will come and heal him, right? The centurion goes on and tells him, look, don't worry about coming. I understand authority. I know you have it. I have it. You have it. I have it over hundreds. You have it, period. So why don't you just say the word? And I know he'll be healed. And so Jesus marvels. When Jesus marvels at you, you have done something significant. Now, I don't know if God was marveling too, because obviously God knows all things. But I'm thinking that this was almost like a surprise to Jesus. I feel like this is me thinking about if Jesus is marveling at something, I don't know that he expected, because he immediately said, I will come and heal him. But guess what? This was a God setup for him to be able to see faith like this in the earth, because it actually gave him the ability to expect it elsewhere. He's like, I haven't seen faith like this in all of Israel, all of Jerusalem, all of wherever. And he's amazing. He's just like, what? This is awesome. So, he's talking about this, and then he goes on and he said, in verse 13. He's like, look, you believe that I can say the word? Look, I'm going to say the word right now. And go, and as you believe, let it be done for you. And so it's almost like he's watching, he's able to see the faith of these people to the point where it's like, man, that was some serious faith. That is awesome. And so he just goes on, and it's awesome because he connects what they said and how they said it to how the healing takes place. I think that's significant because we say things all the time. We might say things, and we might not say it at the level of what we really want, like the maximum that we want. We might just say, okay, I want this way, and boom, okay, we get it. But then you go, oh man, I should have asked for it. But guess what? You can still ask for it and believe for it at the level that you really, really want it. But I mean, he said, I believe that if you just say the word right now, he'll heal. Your words will heal him, or he will be healed. And so Jesus says, go, and as you have believed, let it be done for you. Oh, that is so good, because I think about the words that I say, and I'm like, come on, Lord. This is what I want. And I go to the highest level that I can even think through. And if I could step it down to different phases, if you will, I could, ask for phases, but I'm swinging for the fence. Let's go for this. This is what I want, Lord. Da 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 da. And I believe that I receive it by your word. I find some word that connects and supports what I'm asking for, and boom, I just stand on it, right? And typically, well, he comes through all the time. I'm still waiting on some really cool things that I've asked for from a long time ago, and just in terms of like things, situations, not necessarily material things, but it's like some things that I just situations that I'm looking forward to seeing. You know how you are believing God for your loved ones, and you want people to be happy, and different things. So there's some things that we're still praying and believing for. So at the hundredfold level, this is what I want, Lord. And so that was something I wanted to really point out, because your faith, the words that you speak in faith, and you believe and you stand on, and you do not retract by making opposite comments like I'm still da 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 da. It's like, look, if you said it, you got to mean it, and you got to have faith. Faith means I said it, I have it, it's done, period. Let's keep moving to the next thing. That's the kind of faith that the centurion soldier had. He's like, look, just say the word, and it's done. And that's exactly where we are. We can say words, and pretty much everything that we say will manifest, because that's what Jesus said. You'll have what you say. So I think that was awesome. And then he jumps in a boat, and and goes over. He's going over to I think Decapolis. It doesn't say, but that's pretty much where he was going to cross over. And so he's in the boat, knocked out. I feel like he was on that mountain teaching for a long time. And so he gets up, he goes down the mountain. The leper comes to him. He said, he's not. See, the thing is, he's not working. He's just living his life, doing what he's supposed to do, and as he's going, this stuff is happening because he's like full of God, full of word, full of faith, and miracles follow the words that he has already taught. So he's in the boat. He's taking a little nap because why do you need to stay awake while you're going to where you're going? Take a little nap. And the wind and the waves start whipping on the sea, and the disciples freak out, and they're like, "Dude, we're gonna die." I mean, this is my version, my translation. So don't look for this in the Holman Standard, okay? This is just how I'm doing. You were gonna die. Save us, whatever. And he goes, so he's coming from centurion level faith to these people talking about you're gonna die. I mean, we're gonna die. You're gonna let us die. What are you gonna do? Save us, And Jesus goes, oh my goodness, why are you so afraid or fearful? Where's your faith? You have little faith right now. So then he gets up and shows them how it's done. Takes his dominion authority that he was given when he became a human specimen in the earth realm by knowing that created in the image and the likeness of God, in human form, in a human body, that he has authority over everything on the earth and all the winds, the waves, the sea, the creatures, everything else. So he uses his dominion authority and he goes, you know, he calms the storm. They didn't say what words he said. And then the guys are like freaked out, like, oh my, oh my, oh my Jesus, exactly, right? What in the world, what manner, like in the King James it says, what manner of man is this? But what kind of man is this? I mean, even the winds and the waves and the sea obey him. And I mean, he was our example. I mean, winds, waves, all this stuff, anything that, and most of the people who know me are come to me and say, okay, so what you gonna do about the weather? Because I am known for, like, all right, so what do we want? Let's come in agreement to something that we want, that's agreeable to you and me and some other people, and let's make this thing do what it do, because we're believers. We have authority over weather, wind, waves, too much sun, too much cold, too much whatever. Stop it! No, you can't come here, and all this stuff. And so we use that. So I just really want to talk about that, because that was one of the things that Jesus did, where um, he transitioned. He was looking at people's levels of faith, and they were demonstrating to him their levels of faith by the words that came out of their mouth. So 9 times out of 10, if you talk to me and we're having a conversation and you say something that I feel like is not a statement of faith, I can locate, like, where your level of faith is, where your faith is, like, what do you believe in God for, and to what extent are you really expecting it, right? So not judging anybody or anything, just understanding where you are and how I can maybe help you believe for more, or stretch your faith a little bit more to see some supernatural things happen in your life. So that's what I'm going to talk about in chapter 8. Let's skip over to chapter 9, where where the first thing he does is, after they get off the boat, um, coming back, because once he got over there, he cast out devils and things. But he didn't. This is the cool thing. He only said go. That's the only thing he said to them, because they were like, you're gonna curse us or torment us or whatever. Why don't you just send us to those pigs over there? And all he said was go. Gone. And so they rolled out with the quickness, and the people in that place were like, you got to go. We don't even know who you are, what you're doing. So the whole town came out to meet him and was like, please leave. We don't even know, we're not ready for you yet. So he came back on the other side, and to his own hometown, where he was familiar, where people knew him, where they grew up with them and stuff like that. And um, and so he saw somebody laying on a mat. He was paralyzed, and he saw the faith of the people who had brought the paralyzed guy, to him. He saw their faith, because if you got good friends, they're gonna make sure that if somebody's in town and you got some issues and you're willing to go, we're gonna get you there, because we want to see you made whole too. That's what friends do. Friends make sure the other friend is taken care of and done, that God can be seen in their lives, da 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 da. That's what real friends do. Okay, so if they're not wanting to go, then that's on them. But you know if they want to go, let's find a way to make it happen. So he saw their faith, and because of their faith and his faith, he was like, don't worry about this. You're forgiven. So that would allude to a point that says, sometimes sicknesses um, are caused by some things that are sinful. And I could see where that would be true. It's obviously valid. So here come the scribes. Here they come. This guy is blasphemy. How in the world he gonna tell somebody they are forgiven? And so Jesus, in his discerning ability and having full connection with God at all times, he's like almost their thoughts and their opinions are being broadcast to Jesus. And so God gives him the script of what to say. He's talking about, why are you thinking about these things? Talking about, your sin. What's easier, to say your sins are forgiven, or to say get up and walk? So what is it? And he's like, so just in case you need to know, or just so I can prove to you that I have the power to forgive, why don't I just go ahead and tell this guy to get up and walk? So he did. He got up and walked. And so here he is, healing again. And this is his MO since he did all of that teaching. Signs are following the words. Okay, so then he calls Matthew, just like he called Peter and Andrew and James and John. Hey, come follow me. He just got up from his desk, I'm sure, and just rolled out. And so then the people start questioning him about why the disciples don't fast. And, he's talking about different things. But then the guy Jairus, they don't say his name here, but he was a leader, came and asked him to heal his daughter, who was really at the point of death. And so he's like, sure, I'll come, and in the meantime, before he got to the place, here comes the lady with the issue of blood. And so this is cool because she always, she was for 12 years hemorrhaging. I mean, how did she even survive? I don't even know that they had blood transfusions or anything, because I'm sure she was like very weak. And I mean, it's crazy to think what condition she was in, but she had spent all of her money on medicine. Nothing helped her. But when she saw Jesus, she said to herself, if I can just touch his robe, I will be made well. Now, there's power in saying what you believe, because that is actually what faith looks like. Faith is in your heart and it's in your mouth. So it's like, when you find something that you are believing for, you need to speak that thing out and declare, that is the reality of my life. Whatever the situation is, if it's a new job, if it's a raise on your job, if it's a new business, if it's a new wardrobe, if it's your family salvation. I mean, anything. You speak that thing out and you believe it in your heart. The heart believes, and then your mouth will speak it. So because what he said, out of the abundance, is actually later on, out of the abundance of your heart, your mouth speaks. So here he goes, just like, look, she did what she said. She said, if I can touch his robe, I will be made well. And so here she comes up behind, boom, touched him, and he turned around and looked at her. He's like, your faith has made you well. Now, let me ask you a question. What has your faith done for you recently? You think about that. I mean, really, like, sit down, think about what you have put your faith on and where it has gotten you. And even do it like a, what do you call it? A victory board, like a victory log of, your faith projects and when they manifested, when you believed for it, when it manifested, when you believed for it, when it manifested, and keep that log up to date. Whenever you get victory in an area and you've been believing God for it, just stay in there and keep on going, and don't just focus on the one thing. You can have multiple faith projects at the same time. You can be believing God for your family while you working on a new job, while you know what I'm saying. I mean, this our whole lives are lived by faith. That's what God says in his word, 4 times in the word. 2 in the Old Testament, I think, maybe 3. No, 2 in the Old Testament, 2 in the New Testament. So, I mean, we live by faith. This is what we live by. And so, the thing I wanted to point out is that, like, he just keeps seeing faith demonstrated. And so, he talks about this. The lady gets made whole. The people come and tell the guy his daughter died. But I mean, it's like, dude, she's not dead. She's asleep. Let's get her up. And boom, everybody who was in that room, who was laughing at him and all this stuff, because you're like, that dude crazy. She is just dead. He's like, get out. The door is that way. Get out. And so, he just grabs her hand and says, get up. She got up. I guess they changed their tune, right? So because of his faith in saying, hey, Jesus, will you come and get my daughter, because she's really close to death. um, and he waited, this interruption from the woman who with the issue of blood. I'm sure it had the guy like, oh come on, this is like he's in a rush, because time was ticking. And so Jesus is the resurrection and the life, so he brought both of them, life through resurrection. Come on. Let's see, I think that's what I was just going to talk about in that, except for at the end of it, he talks about the harvest and the laborers. And so he just went through, and I mean, he had been driving out demons, he's been healing people, I mean, all kinds of things were happening as he went wherever he was going. And this is the way our life should be. Wherever we go, things should be happening around us, because we have the Holy Spirit living inside of us, and we have God and Jesus, like, in our hearts, living and helping us helping us do all the things that we need to do. So when he was going through all of these places, he really got moved with compassion for them, because he was just like, they're like sheep without a shepherd. They have no leader. They have no one to to love them and shepherd them and teach them and show them how to do this thing. And so he was like, look, man, the harvest is abundant, but the workers are few. So he was telling them to pray to the Lord of the harvest to send out workers. But then the next chapter, in chapter 10, he's like, but wait, why don't you go out? So he summons his 12 disciples, and he gave them authority over unclean spirits to drive them out and to heal every disease and sickness. Every disease and sickness. Now, at that time, there were some diseases and sicknesses that probably did not exist. Wait, no, that's not true. There were some diseases, there are some diseases now that did not exist then. That's what I wanted to say. But because he gave them authority over unclean spirits to drive them out, and over and to heal every disease and sickness, do you not think that that same anointing, that the authority that we have, is the same that he gave to them? It is. We're his disciples, are we not? I know I am. So any sickness, any disease, any unclean spirit, I can drive out, and it has to obey. So I feel like right now, as we're reading these things, specifically when he gets down to verse 5, and he starts telling them, how to walk, how to do all the, what to say, what to do, how, what you can do, all these things. He's like, hey, just do this. You got it for free, give it for free. You gotta set up an offering bucket and do all of these things. Look, don't worry about that. The worker is worthy of his wages. So you are doing the Lord's work, you will be well paid, believe me. And so he just went through and talks about, they're walking through these things and just going about, showing them. And so then let's see, I think that was important, because in verse 9 at the end, he's like, the workers are few, but the harvest is great. And so then he's like, in verse 10, he's like, wait, let me get you guys. You go out. You do it. I am talking to the Lord of the harvest right now, and he sent me some laborers. You are it. You're going out. Let me tell you what you're going to do. You're going to heal the sick. You're going to raise the dead. You're going to cast out unclean spirits. You're going to do this. You're going to do that. Now, with this one specifically, early on in Matthew, he was telling them not to step into like Samaria and stuff like that, because that was before the whole Gentile thing. So, they're restricted to specific areas to speak to people in the house of the Jews. But then, obviously later on in the Great Commission, it's like all the ends of the earth. So that is what I wanted to make sure I talked to you about in chapter 10. In chapter 11, John's disciples came to him because John had been put in prison by Herod, and so he was a little upset that he was in prison, and he sent his disciples to ask him, hey, look, are you the one that we're looking for? Should we find another? Because I feel like John didn't realize that he had to die the way he did. So he was a little nervous. I'm sure he was just like, I don't believe this guy's out there healing the sick, raising the dead, doing all this stuff, and I'm stuck in prison. And he knows who I am. He's my cousin. Remember we had that discussion last week. I talked about it. I mean, they grew up together. Like seriously, they were cousins. They knew each other before they came out of their mother's bellies. So how is this guy gonna just leave me locked up in jail? I mean, what's up with this? So he sent his disciples to go and ask Jesus, like, "What's up, dude?" And so Jesus made it an opportunity to testify about how amazing John was, and I really feel like that's what we should be doing for each other. Sometimes, and it seems like John. I think John was offended, at a point because he's like, "How dare he?" I mean, the dude could probably just pop on over here and pop me out, do some supernatural transportation stuff if he wanted to. Um, but the thing was, I feel like what he did is what so many of us need help in an area. This is an area that we all need help in terms of honoring people for what they are, what they are, who they are, and what their purpose is in the body. It's so easy to get offended at something somebody says to you, not really understanding fully, all of the circumstances that surround it, and any of the other stuff that might connect it. And it's just like, well, why are we, doing this? And so, in an opportunity to either bash somebody or speak well of somebody, I'm going to always choose to speak well of the person. I love that person, that they are an amazing man or woman of God. They are doing some incredible things for the kingdom of God. I support them wholeheartedly, and I don't have to say anything about, what was done, in private. That is not anybody else's business. I don't need to spread anything. As I've been reading Proverbs, it talks about gossipers and telling different people's business and stuff. I'm just like, look, that is not what the point of my life is. My life is all about loving God's people, which is everybody on the planet, and spreading the kingdom, bringing heaven to earth wherever I go. And so if I'm in a situation that doesn't look heavenly, my job is to ask God, how do I convert this situation into a heavenly situation? And that might mean me shutting up for a minute to get some words, some good words to say about whoever is the subject, the topic of the discussion. If it's to shut down a conversation, look, this person's not even in the room. That doesn't need to be said about this person. You need to take that somewhere else. Whatever. I mean, it doesn't even matter. It's just like we should really take the stance that Jesus took in defending John's name and his character and his purpose, because Jesus knew exactly why John was here, and he fulfilled his purpose. And so I really wanted to just talk to you about that, because it's like we have so many opportunities to just bash the body of Christ. God has given us, the opportunity to be one in one body, the body of Christ. You might be a fingertip, you might be the fingerprint, we don't even know what part of the body we're serving, but if we're all one body, we're all working, we should all be working together toward the same purpose. And so whenever, people in the body start arguing with each other, that's counterproductive. And Jesus talked about, the house divided against itself cannot stand. So, it stands to reason that the church, the body of Christ, the body of believers in the earth, could be a lot farther along if we just got along with each other, regardless of our differences, and just kept the thing moving, so that we could all come into a unified understanding that we're all following the same Jesus, pursuing the same purpose that he had, which was to announce that the kingdom of heaven is at hand. So that's what I wanted you to get from chapter 11. Chapter 12, let me see. Here come the Pharisees. That's what I wrote down. Here come the Pharisees. Now at the beginning of chapter 12, they're talking about how they were just passing through grain fields. The disciples were a little bit hungry, so they just, popped off a couple heads of grain or whatever and snacked on them. And here come the Pharisees. Lord, what are they doing on the Sabbath? How are they working? Harvesting on the Sabbath. They're not harvesting. They're hungry. They're eating. And so Jesus had to, bring them down to earth and say, look, I know you know the Bible because you're a scribe, you're a Pharisee, somebody who knows the word. So let me just explain to you and remind you what King David did when he was hungry and he was in service. He went into the temple and ate some of the showbread that was reserved strictly for the priests. Now, what you want to do about that, right? And so then he goes on, um, and of course it's Sabbath. They love Sabbath because there are things that you should not do on Sabbaths because they had laws and rules. And so here comes Jesus, and here comes this guy with a paralyzed hand. Now he's going like, now wait, time out. I know you're looking at me because you know I'm gonna heal this guy because that's just what I do. That's my MO. Whenever I come in, people might come in sick, but they're gonna leave whole and healed. So what you gonna do is you're gonna watch me to see if I'm gonna do this on a Sabbath because you act like that's my job. It's not my job. It's work of the kingdom, and I do that all the time. And so here he goes, and the people go, um, is it lawful for someone to heal on the Sabbath? And they're like, what's the answer? So then he goes into this little thing. He's like, now, which one of you, like, if you have livestock and your livestock falls into a ditch or a well or something where they can't get out, and it just happens to be a Sabbath, well, what you gonna do? You gonna leave them in there until the next day, or you gonna get down there and get them out today? Because otherwise, you're gonna be short of livestock, and your food supply is gonna be different. The way you're gonna, all this is gonna affect so many things, and that has nothing to do with work. That's about your heart and knowing that, look, I gotta make sure this person's okay. But guess what? It's a human person, and their life is way more valuable than a livestock. So, I tell this dude, stretch out your hand. And he gonna do it. What's up? So he heals the guy. Guy gets his hand stretches out when at the command of Jesus, and the Pharisees already starting to plot like, oh my gosh, I don't believe he did this. Um, so then he every time he try to go to be by himself, like the crowds would follow him. They like he had no alone time. He had to wait until like late. People got tired. They were home, whatever. Because he as many people came to him sick, they left whole. That should be our testimony, people. That should be how we're living our lives. It should not be any person who is sick in our midst. They should be whole. They should be well or on their way. Like gradually getting there. If they don't get it instantaneously, let's just keep in there and believe in God for them. So let's see. Um yeah, pretty much he's been healing people all the whole time. So then he goes into the whole house divided against itself. Can't stand because the Pharisees say, look, he's casting out demons by the devil. Really? Okay. Well, we know that's not even possible to do, and so he gave them the whole little spiel about you can't have a divided house and win. Your house is gonna fall down like a house of cards. So I think the really important thing that I wanted, one of the other important things I wanted to talk about in this chapter was the importance of our words, because it talks about here. In verse 33 of chapter 12 how our words are so important. And in reading Proverbs with this is so cool to me, because sometimes the proverb and the Matthew chapter lines up so perfectly. They may talk about the same thing, and it just jumps out because you just finished reading this in Matthew and now you're reading Proverbs. It's like, wow, this is a proverb that we should be living by. And so when he talks about the tree and its fruit, and he's talking about, the things that come out of your mouth are the things that are in your heart. And this is one of the reasons why I just am so adamant about the words that I say, the things that come out of my mouth. Now, I joke around a whole lot in terms of just having a good, light-hearted attitude, but typically everything I say, I'm not lying. I'm saying exactly the truth. And I wouldn't be joking around and making fun of people. I would just be, having fun, laughing. Laughter is medicine. So I love to laugh. It's great. But that doesn't mean I'm going to laugh at your expense. That's not okay. It's not okay with me. It's not okay with God. Well, vice versa. so, um, so I just really felt like, I think you should just take some time and just read through 33 through verse 33 through 37 on here to make sure that your speech is is proper, And I've been talking about this off and on. I feel like the words that lead to death are becoming more and more prevalent in our speech patterns. Like, oh man, like somebody sings a song um, in any venue or atmosphere. And if they did a really good job, people say, "Oh man, they killed that song," or "slayed it," whatever. I mean, it's just like, and then some posts are so posts on social media, comments are something like, "I died," period. I'm just like, what in the world? It's just like there's so much weight in our words. We really have to be more cognizant of the weight of our words, because in verse 37 it says, by your words you will be acquitted, and by your words you will be condemned. And that's like every word. Verse 36 says, I tell you, on that day of judgment, people will have to account for every careless word they speak. So I just really encourage you, be watchful of the words that come out of your mouth. But it's just really important. I feel like it's just like so essential to our healthy living that we should not speak death words, you know. So be more aware of what you're speaking, and just do this. What if everything you said happened? If you think about that before you speak, then start changing how you're saying things, because you might be meaning something. You might be using sarcasm. You might be, using slang, colloquialisms, things that are easy to say because everybody's saying it. But they have meaning. Words have meaning. And whether or not you know it, the more death you speak, the more death you can expect to see in your life. And that's just the way it is. The opposite is true. The more life you speak, the more life you'll see in your life. So I say speak words of life that give life, and you'll see life. Okay? So chapter 13, we're almost there. Oh my gosh, this is like, oh, I better hurry up. Yeah. Chapter 13, there's a focus on parables. Jesus spoke in parables as fulfillment of prophecy. And the disciples had access to him after all of his talks because they just hung out with him all the time. And so, the thing is, whenever he spoke in a parable, they would get together with him after he talked about whatever the thing was that he was the topic. And in this chapter, it was about the parable of the sower, which is an awesome parable because increase comes when you sow seeds. And based on how you believe, where your faith level is, you get 100, 60, or 30-fold what you're believing for, what you're sowing for. And so, let's just say that once he finished talking about that parable, that the disciples, asked him, they were like, "Hey, so, why do you talk to them like that?" And he talked about the prophetic word that came that he's fulfilling, and then then he goes on to explain what the parable meant, because I feel like the disciples didn't just have one question for him. They wanted to know, hey, so why do you talk like that? Why are you speaking in parables like that? But they also wanted to know, what does that parable mean? But they didn't ask that one. But Jesus is discerning, so he knows. He's like, I know you really want to know what I meant by this whole thing. So let me just go ahead and explain it to you. So he goes on, he explains it, and so all that happened. They understood, and so then I wanted to go to one specific parable because it really, really, really jumped out at me. Um, it's the parable of the hidden treasure and the priceless pearl, found in verses 44 through 46. It says, "The kingdom of heaven is like treasure buried in a field that a man found and reburied. Then, in his joy, he goes and sells everything he has and buys that field. Again, the kingdom of heaven is like a merchant in search of fine pearls. When he found one priceless pearl, he went and sold everything he had and bought it." Now, this was significant to me because I wasn't necessarily trying to read anything into it. I was just reading it, right? And so when I thought about what the guy was doing, what the people were doing as they found the kingdom, like the treasure of the kingdom, what they did was they dug it up, or they got a hold of it, and to secure their possession of that one thing, they just got rid of everything else. Oh my gosh, that was so good because I was like, huh, wow. It's basically giving up or selling everything for the one thing that will give you everything that you need for the rest of your life. And that's what the kingdom is all about. The kingdom is all about understanding that in your life living on earth, you don't have to possess anything except the kingdom, which has everything. That that rocked me. I was like, wait a minute. It's like they found something. They knew it was what they had been looking for, the thing that would answer everything of their life. And just to make sure they could keep what they found, they got rid of everything else. Everything that could distract them. And it was worth more than anything else because it's like, man, you've been searching all this whole time for something that could solve or resolve whatever issues you might have, and you didn't realize it was just one little thing, and you get it, and you're like, this is it, this is it, and you go and get rid of everything else because this is like what you've been looking for the whole time, and it answers every situation that you have in your life. That's what the kingdom is, and that's why we when we get a taste of the kingdom, it makes us thirsty and it causes us to want more of it. And so, knowing that we can drop our desire and our possessions, the things that we want to cling to on the earth, knowing that in Matthew 6, he said, look, you don't have to worry about any of this stuff. Just seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all things will be added to you. Is that not the same thing? I think it is. So that was just so good to me. I was like, man, that's awesome. Okay, I gotta hurry up. So finally, in chapter 14, we have John the Baptist being beheaded by Herod because of a promise he made to Herodias's daughter when she did this little dance. They were all drunk and stuff, um, but he promised to to give her whatever she wanted, up to half of his kingdom. And her mother told her to ask for John's head on a platter. And he couldn't not do it. He didn't want to, but he did it because he had to save face, because everybody heard him tell her, what she could have. So whatever she asked for, she had to get, right? So that's what happened. So the story is John was beheaded. Jesus learns that he was beheaded, and he was on his way by boat to be alone, to just kind of, I feel like he wanted just kind of to grieve a little bit, just to kind of talk to God about it, and just to it's his cousin. I mean, it's family, right? So he's on a boat on his way somewhere. The people on the land see him on the boat on his way to where he's going, and they see the direction he's headed, and they begin to walk to that place to meet him as he gets out of the boat. I think that is ridiculous. Because, I mean, here you have this guy. I mean, they don't know what he's going through. And a lot of times, that's the thing about our lives. No one knows what we're going through. And what we're going through does not have to affect how we deal with the people who we meet in the place where we're going, when we find out what's going on in our lives. I mean, we get bad news. It could throw us into a tailspin and get us all out of whack, and our thoughts are twisted, and we're tripped out. But then in front of us is somebody who needs Jesus. And instead of like shifting our focus to the person who needs Jesus, we're all swirled around in our minds trying to get ourselves together. But one thing about depression is, and I'm not saying we get depressed, I'm just saying the one thing about depression is, it's like an inward constant, and I'm not saying all depression is like this, but it centers on like things about yourself. It's like, there's this story that could like be playing in your head about, why you're in the position you're in, what's going on with you, why don't other people help you, stuff that, it's about you. But the moment someone who's depressed begins to look outside of themselves to see others in the world that might actually be in a worse situation than them, and to reach out a helping hand, depression kind of leaves, because it's like, oh, you know, this is not about me so much as it is about me realizing that I don't have it nearly as bad as some other people in the world. And so I feel like Jesus was at a point where he was really wanting to just be by himself. Not to say he was about to get depressed or anything, but I really feel like he wanted to be by himself just to kind of think about John and remember him. But then he saw the people, and his heart was moved with compassion for them, which is how we should be. We should so be in love with people that if we can help people, we should help people. There's no reason why not to. It's just like, is it inconvenient for you? I mean, was it inconvenient for Jesus? I mean, seriously. But he went, and he not only did he heal every single person. I mean, he was doing it consistently until it got too late for the people to be able to go home and get something to eat, because they had traveled so far. Here they go with the, feeding the 5,000 miracle, the whole thing like that. And so after that miracle, he finally gets away by himself. He sends the disciples on their way. And when he finished praying, he's kind of like at a high point, because he's, up in the mountain somewhere. And he can see them struggling, fighting the waves and the winds. And so he didn't necessarily have a ride, so he took a walk. Yeah, so he started walking on the water, and it said that the boat was about a mile out, right? I'm thinking, this dude is taking a mile walk on the water. How cool is that? That is the coolest thing. And not just any water. It was water that was kind of like, messing with them. It's like waves and winds and stuff. And so to imagine Jesus walking on the water, just kind of chilling, it's like, I can imagine if it was stormy weather all the way to the shore, wherever he walked, it got calm, because it proves it. When Peter says, "Hey, come on, let me do that. If that's you, let me come out there," and he's like, "All right, come on out." Peter walks on water, which proves that, hey, look, why not? You should practice. I know I'm going. I try to on a semi-regular basis, especially in the summertime. And so, Peter walks on water, right? But when he starts to sink, they walk to the boat together. And when Jesus gets into the boat, the winds and the wave cease. The whole thing was calm. So I can imagine that if it was, boisterous the whole time, on the whole body of water, when he stepped his foot on that water, wherever he was, there probably was a line of peace going with him, because that's just how he rolled. And so what I really want to just make sure I highlight on this part is, I want for you to understand that when we look outside of ourselves to take care of God's people, He'll make sure that we're taken care of. I mean, we will be in a far better position after having um, given him away. You know, becoming, just being the vessel, being his hands and feet, being his vocal cords, speaking out the words, listening to his voice, speaking out what you hear, seeing what he's doing that in the earth, and just making life better for others, because he's always others conscious. He's always thinking about other people. He's always thinking about us. He was thinking about us before we even knew him. And so, I mean, I think we just really need to get there. So, in your moments when you're kind of like thinking about what's going on in your world, I just want you to take a pause for a minute and just, you know, think about somebody that you pass by on the street on the way to work, you know, who has a sign up who's saying, hey, I'm pregnant and I'm homeless. I need to eat. I mean, come on. It's life is about being available to be used by God. I mean, that's my life. That's what my life is all about. And because I have grasped and taken hold of this treasure of the kingdom, my sole desire is for the kingdom. And all the things that I desire, they're coming to me. I don't have to be worried about them. I don't have to strive for them. I don't have to go out and buy them. I mean, I will have to go out and buy them, but it won't be like I'll be, you know, doing it in a way that I'm competing. I'm not. There's no competition in the kingdom. I don't have to compete for anything. I have a place in God, in Christ, and it's mine. Nobody else can sit there. It's my chair, my high chair with Jesus. It's my seat. Um, and so just remember that this week. You know, we're reading through the rest of, let's see, we're going from 15 to 22 this week. Next week I'll do the follow up on that chapter. And I pray that you're getting blessed by Matthew. It's just really blessing me. I would love to go back through here and do every single chapter. And maybe I will at some point. Just not right now. And you know, you can use the 1 week synopsis of all the chapters, but you know, maybe one day I'll get around to doing each one chapter by chapter, sitting down with some of my friends and going through it and breaking it down and, you know, digging in like we did in John. That would be awesome. So I'm not saying I'm going to like anytime soon, but I would love to. I'm just saying. So this is going to be it for me. I pray that your week is amazing. I pray that your Valentine's Day was awesome. And that your upcoming week, President's Day week in America. So tomorrow's Monday. Most people don't have to work. If you do have to work, God bless your heart. And then, you know, the rest of the week, short week for some people. Just enjoy your time. You know, enjoy your time with your family and friends, and apply these words. Man, get an expectation of everywhere you're going, knowing that you can release healing in the place. You know, that you can, somebody says, man, I got a migraine headache. I had it, you know, for 3 days now, and I'm here, but I, you know, don't want to be here. My eyes are hurting, sensitive to light, da da da. You know, ask God for what to do. Ask God for what to say, and then do it or say it, and watch what happens. You know, so you know, be a vessel. Be someone who will just ask and do, because that's who we are. We're disciples. Ask the questions. It's okay to ask the questions. He'll answer them, and do what you hear him say. Do. It's just that simple. All right. Well, that'll close it up for me today. I am right at 59 minutes. Oh my Lord. Uh, I pray that you have an amazing week, and I will see you next week. Pray with us on Mondays at 8 a.m. PST for 10 to 15 minutes, wherever you are in the world. We are eradicating human trafficking off of the planet. It is not allowed. It's got to go. And God hears us, and we're seeing change happen in our lives every day for people who are being rescued, people who are being prosecuted for perpetrating these things, trafficking rings broken down, and everything. So keep praying, people. Keep praying. So that'll be it for me. I'll see you guys next week. Peace out.